keynote speaker of the day, Mr. Yele Bademosi. He is the founder of Bundle Africa. Bundle is an Africa-focused social payments app for cash and crypto aiming to drive adoption in Africa and bringing more economic freedom and prosperity to all Africans. Yele is focused on developing the blockchain ecosystem in Africa, accelerating Africa's transition into a sustainable and development economy by leveraging capital, innovation, and policy. He is a founding partner at Microtraction, which funds Africa's most remarkable teams at early-stage startups across multiple sectors, including finance and cryptocurrency. Previously, he was a director at Binance Labs, leading the Africa chapter of the Binance Labs Incubation Program and general manager of Starter Africa, an online community and resource platform for African entrepreneurs. He is a self-taught designer and developer and has created multiple apps and products, including a social app connecting university students in the UK. Yele holds a Bachelor of Medical Science from King's College London. Welcome, Yele.
All right, awesome. So my talk today is primarily around what I call Web 2.5. And essentially, I'm going to introduce a set of ideas that I think would really change the way we think about venture financing and the role of entrepreneurship and crypto in driving Africa's economic development. About 4 years ago, when I started my fund, Microtraction, the idea of the goal was really saying, how do we support, 1,000 plus entrepreneurs every year, giving them the capital to build businesses that are solving critical problems across the African continent. At the time I wasn't doing anything in crypto. I had never bought Bitcoin. I think I bought my first Bitcoin in 2016. Everything was still pretty new for me. And the lens I viewed the world was through what I refer to as traditional tech, which is, what we know today as the traditional venture capital industry. So far, 5 years later, or 4 years later, Microtraction has funded 30 plus companies. Majority of these investments have been in Nigeria, and some of them in Western Africa. But there are a ton of entrepreneurs across Africa who are yet to receive funding. And I think this is also true when you look at, the vast majority of other venture capital firms across Africa today. And so the fundamental problem is, why hasn't venture capital scaled? Especially when we understand the role or the importance of entrepreneurs in solving some of the largest problems that we face as Africans. Fundamentally, it comes down to two things. One is that traditional venture capital requires businesses that have venture scale returns. Venture scale returns here means that as a business, you have the opportunity to make anywhere from $50 to $100 million a year in annual revenue, and sometimes even higher. Now, unfortunately, there are very few businesses that can achieve that type of scale, right? And that's why the vast majority of venture-backed companies actually fail. So that's number one. Number two is actually that there's a ton of capital that is locked in within our overall ecosystem, whether even in traditional venture or with people who maybe don't have as much capital as a fund, but they can invest anywhere from $500 all the way to $10,000, $20,000 a year. You also have the vast majority of people in the African diaspora living in countries like the US and Europe, in Latin America, or even Asia, who are very interested in supporting African entrepreneurship. But today, that capital is not really connected to the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And so that's what kind of began to drive a lot of my thinking around, what is the overlap between crypto as we know it and some of the trends we've seen around like ICOs, IEOs, and then more recently IDOs. So for those who might not know, an ICO is an initial coin offering, and that was the style of fundraising that we really saw leading up to the bull and bear market in 2017, 2018. IEOs were pioneered by Binance, and where centralized exchanges perform the function of sort of helping projects raise capital and distribution to their own users. And then more recently, we've seen this idea of IDOs with the rise of decentralized swaps and AMMs like Pancake Swap, Uniswap, or Quick Swap, wherein projects are able to raise capital directly on chain. I was trying to find some numbers over the last sort of 12 months to see the amount of capital that has been raised via IDOs. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find any particular number, but it's definitely a trend that is not going anywhere anytime soon. And I would kind of circle back on that idea a bit, but the bottom line is that the blockchain is one of the killer applications for the blockchain, and I think CZ, the CEO of Binance, said this really well. In my opinion, one of the most important and influential posts around the role of blockchains is that the blockchain and crypto assets are extremely efficient at kind of raising capital from a globally distributed audience and then allocating that capital towards sort of like projects or like entrepreneurs. So that's sort of like one idea. The second sort of like really important idea for me is this concept of community ownership, right? So today, when the vast majority of startups as we know it, a lot of the value that is actually created by these companies, especially sort of like social networks, marketplaces like Uber, Airbnb, a lot of that value is actually brought in by the users or partners of the particular platform. And unfortunately, those particular individuals don't actually see a ton of the benefits. I believe that in the future, we're going to have, sort of organizations that function more like DAOs, a decentralized autonomous organization, whereby the users and the community are the ones who actually own the platforms and protocols that replace this idea of a centralized entity or organization that is capturing all of the value. And this is not some futuristic idea about the future, right? This is something that is happening right now and today. So one of my favorite projects at the moment is something called Axie Infinity. It's a crypto game that has evolved over the last 3 to 4 years. At the beginning, Axie Infinity was very similar to CryptoKitties. It was just sort of like NFTs that had, different traits. But over time, we've evolved that into what I believe is the first digital nation, right? With Axie Infinity, the primitive and when I say primitive is basically, some new idea that is discovered within the cryptocurrency or within the crypto economy and can then be transported into a different project. You can think of it as almost like recombining parts of a DNA to create like a new thing. So one of the most interesting primitives that Axie Infinity introduced is this concept of play to earn, wherein you have two tokens. You have the AXX token, which is the governance token, and something called SLP, which is the kind of in-game or ecosystem currency. And essentially, that economy works in the way that users who use the platform or play the game are actually paid out real capital, which they can take out of the game, right? And people are earning anywhere from $30 to $70 a day. I don't know what the average income is for across Africa, but I know that there's stats out there that puts more than anywhere from kind of 30 to 60% of the population earning less than $2 a day, right? So being able to earn $30 a day by playing a game is extremely powerful. But the key idea there is that Axie as a protocol and DAO, if I can use that word, have made the decision essentially to, as opposed to trying to capture all the value and revenue by themselves, they made the decision to sort of like share that value with their users in a way that the users are now rewarded and earning some kind of economic benefit and return as a result of taking part in that particular network by playing the game. That idea can be applied to different things. It could, as opposed to Uber, or maybe Google, for instance, right, or even Facebook, keeping the millions and hundreds of millions of billions of dollars that they earn. What if those revenues were being given and distributed to their users? And I don't think that is far off, right? So that is, I would say that's kind of like the second idea. So the first idea, which I introduced earlier, was that we can use the blockchain to raise capital, and we don't have to raise capital through centralized exchanges, right? That's the power of like decentralized finance. So the idea number one is this concept of IDOs and using the blockchain to raise capital. Idea number two is this idea of play to earn, or building a protocol or a DAO that, as opposed to the DAO centralizing and keeping a ton of the value for themselves and for the founders and investors, a lot of that money is then kind of redistributed back into the community who have contributed, their capital, their time, and individual networks to kind of grow that particular network. The final one, which I'm now sort of like really, really excited about, is the idea of sort of combining sort of Web2 products. And by Web2 products, I mean that a SaaS platform, an Uber, or anything that we can think of as traditional tech, but then introducing this idea of tokens to them. Now, before, if you think about, let's say, Trust Wallet or SafePal, or even Uniswap, this idea of a governance token, or sometimes I think in the future we'll see tokens also acting as like a access token, wherein by holding this token, if you have access to a particular product. And then from a governance perspective, it just means that you can use the tokens to essentially give your users a voice, right? But in my opinion, that can be applied to almost any product, right? There's nothing that stops. Well, technically, I guess regulators can say that fintechs shouldn't have like tokens, but if I built a gaming or a dating application today, there's nothing that stops me from introducing a token into my dating application. And that is powerful because, when you look at the amount of capital that has gone into venture as a whole in Africa today, a lot of it goes into financial services. But there's a whole plethora of other sectors and opportunities that are being ignored by venture capital. Again, it's a combination of VCs looking for significant returns, and not really thinking that a social app or a consumer app or can have tremendous returns. But that doesn't matter. Capital should not be determined by just a 1% or 0.1% of individuals who have pulled capital from extremely wealthy people. At the end of the day, the whole point not the whole point, one of the key parts or elements of crypto is this idea of decentralized coordination. And so it means that in the future, my prediction, as one of the things I'm thinking about, is how do we allow the everyday person, regardless of their geography, it doesn't matter if this entrepreneur is in Kenya or is in Tanzania, or is in St. Kitts or is in Australia or is in Thailand, if you believe that this particular individual, in Africa or any emerging market is building something, and they figured out a way to introduce a token into the product, that's something that funded by almost anyone and everyone. And I think one of the things that kind of maybe was quite challenging when I thought about this a little bit was that, in some countries like Nigeria, where we have restrictions on any company that has a crypto, that offers cryptocurrency, that means you can't use traditional payment rails like Flutterwave or Paystack, but we built CashLink at Bundle, which made it easy for our users to deposit in and out of crypto or a crypto wallet without needing to do a direct integration into a bank account. And so I personally believe that in the future, and when I say future, I mean by the next 3 to 6 months, entrepreneurs will make a decision in terms of, do I want, number one, do I buy into this idea of I want to build something, but maybe traditional VCs are not willing to back what I'm doing, but I can raise capital from a globally distributed audience. And yes, I might not be able to integrate into a direct payment channel, but because there's an alternative way to get cash in and out of my product, I'm willing to take a bet and, use crypto as kind of like a means of payment within my application. And that's if, that's an application that has to do with like some types of payment. But the core idea or the vision for the future here is that we're gonna see a diverse set of opportunities and founders building things that were previously ignored by the VCs, but users themselves believe that these things are worth existing, and we then pull our capital to support these particular ideas, right? And because crypto is borderless and permissionless, an entrepreneur can raise capital from almost anyone and anywhere. That particular product is then co-owned by its users and the community. And as that product or platform becomes better and more useful, the early users who believed in this idea and bought those tokens are rewarded for their belief and faith in trying to make a particular idea a success. So for me, that's kind of like the core, something that I'm very, very passionate about. It's the intersection of things that I've cared about for the last, 5 years, which is saying that we believe that Africa's economic transformation will not be driven by governments or charity aids. It'll be driven by entrepreneurs. It'll be driven by us, because we believe, or we understand the future we're trying to create for ourselves, for our children and our children's children. And, the role of crypto here is to democratize access to economic opportunity. And, a lot of people have asked, like, what am I working on next? Why did I step down as CEO of Bundle, and a bunch of other questions. I believe that with time, some of these things I discussed today would really be aligned with a number of the things that I would love to work on. But it's an exciting time. I personally believe that Africa is the right fit for, it's the right market, and we're a right fit for cryptocurrencies. And we're just getting started. Crypto in Africa today reminds me of China and the internet in 1999, right? Crypto has the potential to make Africa a single market. And, as builders, as participants in the space, I'm excited to build with different contributors and partners, and hopefully we can create a future that we own and are really, really excited about. Thank you very much.